Let's talk with Rudy. What's going on?
Hey, Christy. Hey, V. Hey, Julian. How are you guys doing?
Hey, doing all right. Glad to hear from you.
Be ready for Saturday night?
So ready.
You guys are just going to have to wonder what that means. But anyways, I wanted to call in and kind of probe you guys' brains for basically my partner and I have had almost no sexual experience outside of our relationship, and my partner has had zero at all outside of our relationship. So it's like we're a couple of crazy kids that met on Tinder and got engaged, and after a couple years, and we've been together. Like, I don't want it to sound like we just met on Tinder and then got engaged. Like, I skipped some parts of the story. But anyway, it's like we have this very well-established relationship, but there's something about like exploring kinks and fetishes and things like that that's kind of associated with having sex with more than one person to figure that kind of stuff out, So it's like,
there definitely can be.
Yeah.
I want to challenge those assumptions a little bit, but yeah, I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying that's not the case by any means. No, I'm not saying that that's the only way, but it's definitely strongly associated with, sexual experimentation is definitely something that's strongly associated with experimenting with other people. And so I guess that I've just been trying to figure out how to be more exploring in an already established, very vanilla relationship, I guess.
That's a great question.
Yeah, well, I guess the first one is this a journey that your partner wants to go on with you? And to what extent? You don't necessarily have to have like exactly lining up interests, but are they interested in finding out more?
I think that he's at least curious. I don't know to what degree he is, because he's also asexual, not sex repulsed, but just doesn't want to do it super often, which is fine. That's something that's already fine for us. But it's like, okay, but maybe we don't have. Maybe like not everything that we do sexually necessarily has to be sex, or maybe when we do, it could be, I don't know. Like that's the kind of thing that it's like I'm sure that he's as curious as I am, but we also don't have the opportunity to explore that super often. So yeah.
Okay.
One thing that you might try to do is, I know that I find it very fun to try new sexual kinky stuff that doesn't have to do with sex specifically, at least not penetrative sex. So there is there are things that you can try, that you can do, that are absolutely have nothing to do with genitalia at all, that are also very kinky and very sexy. Something like is it called shibari? Rope play?
Shibari. Yep. Yeah. Shibari and kinbaku.
Yeah, so fun. I've played around with it. It's amazing. I want to get better at it, but just being tied up with very intricate knots and just like the sensual feelings of like the rope against your skin. It's a very sensual thing and very kinky, but it doesn't necessarily have to lead to sex at all. Another thing would be something like hand worship or foot worship, right? Or the worship of a particular body part, which means like just super intimate attention to it. And, kissing, licking, sucking, whatever. But it wouldn't necessarily, again, have to lead to any kind of intercourse. So there are definitely ways to experiment with things that don't require you to give up one of those more less frequent actual like sex moments.
Something I would like to say that's kind of piggybacking a little bit off of something that V just said regarding questionable kinky fun things that don't necessarily have to be specifically penetrative. Just a couple days ago, my partner and I were playing around, having fun, and something that I greatly enjoy is sensory play, including sensory deprivation. And that is so much fun because especially regarding sensory deprivation or restraint in some way or another. The evening that I'm remembering, I was tied spread eagle to the bed with a blindfold on, and it was fantastic. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't do anything except for just experience what was being done to me. There was no sex during this. I mean, later on in the evening, that changed. But anyway, feeling nothing more than just lying there, and then feeling the nails on my sides or the tip of my knife scraping along my body. Note, knife play. Do research about it. Be careful. I made that mistake before. It ended
Very
with
edge play.
Oh.
Yeah, my first experience with that ended with a 10-inch scar on my torso, and that's why I don't drink tequila anymore, but that's another story. Yeah, don't do that. That's a whole other topic. But anyway, just simply exploring sensory play is so much fun, and it doesn't have to be inherently sexual. It is exciting. Yes, it is arousing. Yes, but I use both of those terms in a broad sense, not necessarily in a purely sexual way. That is something that I would kind of recommend as a fun way to kind of delve a little bit deeper into kink and things that are exciting. Restrict movement for this time and just play with something. And if you don't want to go in quite the same direction as, a knife or flogging or what have you, something that I really enjoy is just tracing a feather along the body in specific areas, along the sides where things are a little bit sensitive, or using an ice cube. That is incredibly, I'll just say exciting again, because especially if you can't see anything, just out of nowhere, oh my God, my what is cold now? Is a lot of fun. And again, it doesn't have to be inherently sexual. It doesn't have to lead to an orgasm. It can just be enjoying the sensations, whatever they may be. And I think that's a good way, at least speaking from my own experience, I think that could be a good way to kind of start to delve a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Just play with sensations, restrict movement, restrict sight or vision, or those are the same, or hearing, that kind of thing. Restrict one thing to heighten another. I think that might be an option.
Are you hearing anything in here that excites you, that you like, that you might want to try?
No, I mean, I think that's all fascinating. And I'm also realizing as you're saying that some of those things are kind of similar to stuff that we have done. And I guess that I just didn't think of it as like, oh, this is like, because in my mind, those are always like, okay, this always leads to sex. But now it's like, we could do that sans sex. Interesting. Yeah. Like, I don't know why I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. Kink and BDSM does not necessarily have to be sex exclusive. It can be, or yeah, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily need to involve sex for it to be enjoyable. It can just be its own thing in and of itself and end there. And then once you're all done and tidied up, talk about it. See what you liked. See what you enjoyed. See what you didn't like. Figure out the hard limits, the soft limits on both sides.
And certainly do have safe words in place, even if you're not having actual intercourse. It's important overall to be able to tell when somebody is saying, oh no, don't do that, as code for like, oh, I'm having fun, versus no, I'm done now. We need to stop.
Or also just brief tangent on that. Safe words are, yes, absolutely important. But if you end up playing with something like a gag where you can't actually say anything, having another symbol or another way to kind of say, hey, we need to tap out now. I mean, whether it just be snapping your fingers 3 times, that is also an important thing. If safe word as a specific word is not readily available or doable. Yeah, having a clear way to say, I need to tap out immediately is crucial.
Well, and that's a couple of what's, but I think it's also important to answer the question of how. If these are things that you're interested in pursuing, consensual, non-consent, rope play, shibari, like any of these different things, if you're looking to explore them with your partner, yes, there are all kinds of classes and things that you can take, online videos and training. You can explore through pornography and through fantasy and all of those kinds of things. But even still, before any of the things we've talked about, is that conversation with your partner that sounds like it hasn't quite happened yet. And I think that is maybe the thing that all of this should be couched in. What is that conversation like? And what is their interest level in trying new things, in watching a tutorial video, or exploring any of these ideas?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's not that we've never had conversations like that. We kind of have on specific things, and sometimes it panned out and sometimes it didn't. But I guess that approaching that conversation is always kind of the hard part, I guess, of like, okay, this is weird. In my head, I feel like this is weird, but now I want to talk to you about, like, okay, here's something I want to try. And it's like, this is a person I trust with pretty much everything, and I have hard conversations with all the time, but that kind of conversation in particular seems so much more difficult for some reason.
Well, and that muscle gets stronger the more and more you use it. You know, don't go into it thinking, all right, I just took my kink test, which, by the way, there are a couple of different BDSM profile tests in the footnotes to this episode. If you're curious about your own adjectives, they're a good idea to check out. But you don't go and take that test and then leave the results on your partner's pillow if they're not, like, open or excited about that idea. You don't need to find out, oh, okay, so there are 20 things I might be interested in. We're going to do this one here and that one there. You don't have to take it all in one bite. You can have this conversation casually. You can have this conversation in tiny little increments that only include, hey, later on today, would you be interested in this very small thing? That's enough. It doesn't need to be a big, broader conversation. If that feels good to have a, define the relationship, reconstruct the sexuality component conversation, then great, have that conversation. Bring in a therapist or a buddy if you need to. But more often than not, I think it's the little moments that end up defining our relationship.
Yeah.
That's a lot of homework.
So smart shit to say, Christy.
Well, we've just given you, like, a lot to think about, so
a lot to digest.
Time.
I mean, I'm definitely going to be watching the call back later just to be like, what the hell just happened? But yeah, that was all really, really great advice, guys. Thank you. And I feel like that, between your different kinds of advices of the what and the how, I have a pretty comprehensive idea of how to proceed. So thank you.
Awesome.
Well, we're definitely glad to hear from you and excited to have you back soon.
Yeah, call back with results if you want to. That would be awesome to hear about.
Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Take care.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you. You too.